Hello, Packers fans. Welcome into PackersNews.com. I'm Kassidy Hill, here live from Lambeau Field. As you can see, not on the field today. This is one of those weird games where we can't be on the field ahead of time, but still live from Lambeau Field, where we have had players coming out for warm-ups, including Christian Watson and Keyshawn Nixon. Could be big news for the Packers here in Week 17 as they get ready to take on the Minnesota Vikings in what essentially amounts to a must-win game. If the Packers have any chance of sneaking into the playoffs as a wild card spot, it will take winning today, it will take winning next week, and it'll take a lot of help from the Washington Commanders as well, specifically if they can lose to the Cleveland Browns. If you are not able to see that score yet, the Cleveland Browns at last check. In fact, let's look at this now. Cleveland Browns are up 10-7 on the Commanders with 7 minutes to go in the third. So good news for Packers fans there as well, as the Browns lead the Commanders. Craig says, Happy New Year from Calgary. Happy New Year, Craig. As you can see, I've got my sparkles on for New Year's. Very few times you get to wear things like this. So we're going to do it here today at Lambeau Field. As we said, though, we've got about 5 or so minutes from inactives. Wanted to come on a little later today just so that we could bring you those inactives, since they are going to be very, very important, especially when it comes to Christian Watson and Keyshawn Nixon. Wide receiver Christian Watson did not practice on Wednesday or Thursday, but he did practice on Friday as a limited participant. He has been out warming up on Lambeau Field with his cleats on. Could be good news for the Packers if he can go. It could be excellent news for the Packers if he can go today. It could be crucial for the Packers if he can go today, because this is a Minnesota Vikings team that we know is so fast, is such a high-powered offense, and you have to be able to outscore them. And Christian Watson has become the linchpin in this Packers offense, and really the difference maker as they sort of turn things around here in the past 6 weeks. If you have any questions, go ahead and drop them in the comments. Happy to take some of those here as we get going. But speaking of Christian Watson, let's just kind of start there. As we said, Christian Watson was limited on Friday. He told reporters this week that he feels comfortable going even if he didn't practice. And Matt LaFleur reiterated that on Friday. He said Christian Watson is such a smart player that he feels comfortable with just him getting mental reps if that has to be the case. Of course, you want to get those physical reps as well. But in the case of Watson, and because of how important he is to this Packers offense, if he can physically go today, they feel comfortable putting him out there even without practice. We talked to Christian Watson this week. Let's actually hear from him for real quick on what he feels he can do today, even with limited practice reps during the week.
I've been feeling better and better each day. It's obviously something that I just gotta take day to day, and just hope him continue to take strides and hopefully I can kind of lose on game day.
Do you feel pretty good about your ability to play on limited practice reps? That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, no, I feel like the mental side will be fine. Obviously, it's nice to get those reps out there, but I think the number one thing for me is just trying to feel as healthy as possible.
So if you're 80%, what do you run? Like 4, or how does that?
I'm not sure. I mean, I'd obviously like to be at 100%. Obviously, me, utilizing my speed as like a big part of my game. But I'm sure 80% is still pretty good.
So as we heard there from Christian Watson, because of his speed, even at 80%, he will probably be good. He can still outrun a lot of people, even at 80% of his speed. That was our Tom Silverstein there asking him the question. And as we said, Watson is so key to this Packers offense. If it was a little bit colder, this would be one of those days where you could see A.J. Dillon taking over. But walking around Lambeau Field earlier, walking into the stadium, walking around, it's not that cold. It's in the 30s, I believe, right now. In fact, let me see exactly what the temperature is. It's 39 right now at Lambeau Field. Not bad. And so you can see the Vikings wanting to keep this game in the air. This is not one of those games where this necessarily has to stay on the ground. And if that's the case, you've got to have Christian Watson out there if you're the Packers. Romeo Doubs, Allen Lazard, Randall Cobb, they can all do a lot for you, but Christian Watson is your downfield threat. He's who's going to take the top off. And with this Vikings secondary, which is apt to give up those big plays, you need someone like Christian Watson who can really stress the field. Let's jump into a couple of scenarios here. Karen says, I hope, unlike me, the Packers aren't watching the Giants. They need to play with their hearts. It's going to take every single Packer to want to win this game. A lot of the Packers players were asked this week if they were going to be watching some of these other games, if they were going to be keeping an eye on them. And they said, you kind of can't help it. And that you want to ignore it as much as you can, but human nature flips in and you kind of can't help but to turn that game on and just want to see what's going on. In fact, let's check in on that game right now. I think, Randy, you mentioned Washington leading. Cleveland is leading that game now. There's 4.5 minutes to go in the third, and Cleveland is still leading 10-7 in that game. And so you can't help as humans to kind of want to check in on that game. And a lot of Packers players this week said that they were going to probably be checking in on it. They just couldn't help themselves. But none of that matters if they don't win here today. And winning here today, as we said, is going to probably take Christian Watson, is probably going to take Keyshawn Nixon getting good field position on special teams. Just an update, Keyshawn Nixon was out warming up. He came out and warmed up. Then he went inside. Then he came back out. So it could be good news for the Packers there as well if they get Keyshawn Nixon. And the inactives have come out. Here we go. Okay. Christian Watson and Keyshawn Nixon are both active for the Packers. They could, let's just put a disclaimer on that, they could still be a game time decision. But as for now, they are both active, so they will both suit up. That could be huge, huge for the Packers. Keyshawn Nixon's injury was a groin injury, but they pulled him almost immediately versus the Dolphins, didn't let it get worse. If you remember, Jaire Alexander had a groin injury earlier this year, something he suffered during the Bucs game, and he continued to play on it. He thought he could work through it. He wasn't sure how bad it was, if that's what it was, and he continued to play through it, and that's why it made it so much worse, and he ended up being out for a couple of weeks. Keyshawn Nixon told the trainers as soon as it happened, and they pulled him pretty quickly. So maybe this rest this week was enough for him to be able to get back out there today. The inactives for the Packers versus the Vikings will be Shamar Jean-Charles, Tyler Goodson, Chris Barnes, Rasheed Walker, Caleb Jones, Bo Melton, Jonathan Ford. Tyler Goodson is an interesting inactive considering they elevated him just for this game day. I'm not sure why you would elevate him if you were then just going to make him inactive. That's an interesting move. That's an interesting roster move there. Might have to be asking about that later on. That's an interesting move with Tyler Goodson. Sorry, that really kind of just threw me off. So, like I said, if you have any other questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. But for as much as the Packers offense needs to do their part today, this game is really going to come down to the Packers defense versus Justin Jefferson and Tyler Hockenson and Dalvin Cook. And used to it would have just been Justin Jefferson. But now with how this offense is clicking with Hockenson, with Dalvin Cook, with Adam Thielen, if you put too much attention on Justin Jefferson, those other guys can hurt you. The guys talked about that this week and about knowing that you can't put all your attention on Jefferson. However, he is still the main focus. That's undeniable. And the Packers were hurt in week 1 by not giving Justin Jefferson the attention he deserved, by playing too much of a soft zone. We've seen in recent weeks, though, that they've started to mix some of their coverages on defense. They'll play a soft zone and they'll mix man in there with the corners, or they'll disguise it as man when really it's a zone. That's why they were able to get so many turnovers versus the Dolphins. Because of that, both Rasul Douglas and Jaire Alexander said this week that they were hesitant to go back and watch the week 1 tape. When asked why, they simply said, we're not the same team we were then, and neither are they. They actually expanded on that a little bit more, though. Let's hear from both Jaire and Rasul on why they are not going back to watch the week 1 tape this week.
I don't really remember that game for real. Yeah, I kind of knocked all of the first half season games away.
So you purposely don't remember it?
Yeah.
So you didn't go back and watch it this week just to see what the hell happened?
Nah.
Well, Rasul said he did not watch the first game, Packers Vikings game. How about you?
No, I didn't either.
What's that?
Bad taste in my mouth. I'd rather just focus on how we've been doing now and keeping the energy elevating.
So it's better to just kind of focus on what Jefferson's done the past couple of weeks and what your defense has been, not look back.
Exactly. We don't want to dwell on that first game because, hey, we was working through things. That's it.
Do you feel like that was kind of the matter of what it was? You were still figuring each
Yeah, I think that played a part of it too.
Is that up to you guys? Which film you want to watch? Like, coaches,
Yeah. Oh yeah. We watch. Look, we choose whatever film we want to watch, however we want to break it down. You know, the coaches may suggest sometimes, but you know, it's up to us.
So as you hear there from Rasul and Jaire, electing not to watch that week 1 tape because they're a different defense and this Vikings offense is a different offense. With Jefferson specifically, though, it does take keeping someone on him. If you let one guy get beat, he's gone. And so you have to keep the top on. That's something that hurt them in the first half versus Miami. And then they made the switch back to Darnell Savage at safety, pulling Rudy Ford, and it really made a difference. Can Darnell Savage keep that up today, though? That's the case. Because if you let Jefferson get one little sliver, he can be gone. And if you can keep the safeties up top, don't let Rudy Ford or Darnell Savage, whoever's in there, bite on some of those underneath things, then you might have a better hope of keeping Jefferson contained. In fact, Levi's comments, they better do a better job at passing guys off in zone. That's really what it comes down to. If you think about that big play that I believe it was Jalen Waddle had at Miami, or maybe Tyreek Hill. I believe it was Jalen Waddle, where he got a sliver and he ran past Adrian Amos. Actually, now that I think about it, I think it was Tyreek Hill. He ran past Adrian Amos, which can be expected. He's that fast. Rudy Ford was not there for the pass off because he had bit on the underneath running route. You can't bite. You can't be fooled because those guys are so fast. And Justin Jefferson is the same case here. Can they put more focus on him without giving up those plays to Hawkinson and Dalvin Cook and Thielen as well? That's going to be the question. And it's what makes this Vikings offense so potent. A lot of the guys talked about that this week. Let's hear what they had to say about stopping not only Justin Jefferson, but this entire Vikings offense.
Well, in my opinion, he's in my top 3 receivers. Devontae Adams, number 1. And I think Waddle might have snuck in there as of this past weekend. so yeah, but I think he's a really good receiver.
They find ways to, get him the ball in multiple different ways, and he can do it. He runs good routes. He can line up and do everything. He can, line up out wide at X. He can line up in the slot. Sometimes they put him in the backfield, do some stuff. But he can do it all. He has a whole tree.
First game, that was a fluke.
On film, there's been a lot of different types of highlights. He's had like the hands catch on that big 4th down against Buffalo. He's beaten people with speed. He's had yards after the catch, and route running is good for him as well. If you had to say his best skill is, what would it be?
Yeah, I think he does a really good job at the catch point. I think he has strong hands. You wouldn't really expect it because he seemed like really skinny and lanky, but he's really strong at the catch point, and he's good after he catches the ball. I think that's probably one of his best attributes. He can get vertical and score.
Is Jefferson the best receiver in the league? Do you think?
Do I think so?
Yeah.
I played with Devontae Adams before, so I'm going to say Tay is. But I definitely think the year he's having it's nothing like it, so you could argue that he can be number 1. So I wouldn't say he's not if you thought that.
Yeah, no, that's a win. I mean, this dude's real explosive. Like, he's, like I said, he's in my top 3 receivers, honestly. So, I mean, with guys like that, it's hard to say, all right, we're going to stop him, we're going to shut him down. But, what you can do is limit the plays that he gets. So.
How do you find
You can live with like a couple of small ones.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you can live with that, You can live with that. At the end of the day, it's all about what the scoreboard say. And as long as we on top, that's all that matters.
I mean, they do a good job scheming people up. So, I think when you go in a game with a receiver like that, you already got like 3 plays. You hoping that a team runs a certain defense when he runs that play,
So as we heard there from Rasul, Jaire, and Adrian Amos, you can't let Jefferson run his full route tree on you, which he is able to do. While we were listening to those guys, the Cleveland Browns did score another touchdown. It is currently, it should be 17-7 now. Yes, 17-7 Cleveland Browns as the third quarter comes to a close. Everyone is keeping a close eye on that game today. I see a lot of questions in here about who needs to lose and who needs to win where. Washington just needs to lose 1 game. However, the reason so much focus is on this game today is because they play the Dallas Cowboys next week. And the Dallas Cowboys should have their playoff spot locked up by then. And so it's pretty feasible to think the Dallas Cowboys will be resting a lot of their starters. In fact, they rested Tony Pollard this past week. And so if the Cowboys are resting their starters, the Browns have a pretty good chance of winning that game. Think about last year when the Packers played the Lions and they pulled all of their starters at halftime. And so if that's the case, that should be a game next week that the Commanders win, which is why so much focus is on this game today versus the Cleveland Browns. Okay. Let's see. A couple other questions have come in. Karen said, Jaire, I've said it once. I would say it again. Put your money where your mouth is. We need you to represent. It wasn't just week one. That was a fluke. This comment by Jaire has gotten a lot of attention this week. So I wanted to put some clarification on it. What he was saying was that week one was a fluke for the Packers defense, not necessarily for what Justin Jefferson was able to do, but for what they didn't do. And if you've seen over the past couple of weeks, they've started to sort of get this defense more under their belt. And as we said, play those mixed coverages and play some more of those disguises. But what's also made a huge difference in the defense this week, and I see a comment about it down here. Robert says, do you think the pass rush can get to the quarterback in time to limit the deep passing game? We talked to every secondary player this week for the Packers and asked them what they think the biggest difference has been this past couple of weeks, specifically with turnovers. In the past 6 weeks, they have 9 interceptions. In the first 9 weeks, I wrote it down. Let me make sure I get it right. In the first 9 weeks, they had 5 interceptions. So to have 9 interceptions in the past 6 weeks, something has changed. And when we asked all of the secondary players what they thought it was, they simply said the pass rush, that the guys up front have gotten home and it's forced errant throws, it's forced tips, it's forced overthrows, and it's put them in a better position to nab those interceptions. A lot of that is because of Preston Smith. He has 5 sacks in the last 5 games. He stepped up in a huge way with Rashawn Gary going down, because you remember that first game after Rashawn Gary went down, that pass rush was gone. And you thought, this is it. This defense is done for because they can't get any pressure on the quarterback. You've seen Preston Smith really come on and sort of take over and become that number one guy the past few weeks. And behind him, Kingsley Enagbare has been playing outstanding for a rookie. You've seen more Devontae Wyatt get pushed from the inside, along with Kenny Clark, who has played some of his best football the past 3 weeks. Devontae Wyatt should be playing a lot more today alongside TJ Slayton because Dean Lowry is now on injured reserve for the rest of the year. If Kenny Clark and Devontae Wyatt and TJ Slayton can sort of get that inside push and Preston Smith and Kingsley Enagbare can continue to do what they've been doing, they should have a much, much better pass rush than they did in week one, even with Rashawn Gary. And that's no offense to Rashawn Gary. It's just you've seen the defense sort of figure itself out more, and you've seen these rookies like Enagbare and like Wyatt really step up and fill their role better in this defense. However, you said, Robert, do you think they can get to the quarterback in time? That's the biggest difference here. Kirk Cousins gets the ball out so fast. And if he's getting the ball out fast, it doesn't matter if you get there in that amount of time. If he's getting the ball out in less than 3 seconds, it doesn't matter. And so you have to watch the flat, because that's where this defense has gotten hurt before. And that's where someone like Hawkinson can really step in and hurt this defense so bad, because Kirk Cousins gets the ball out fast. When he gets the ball out fast, he's going to take those short underneath things to Hawkinson, to Dalvin Cook, who flexes out. Can you defend that is going to be the case, because the deep passing game, I think, has been limited in recent weeks, save for that first half versus Miami, because of the pass rush and because of the secondary kind of shoring up their defense more. It's those quick throws that could really hurt the Packers today. And because of that, that's why you have to play such complementary defense, because you need your safeties to stay up top because of Jefferson, but you've got to have your linebackers protecting that middle stuff, because Kirk Cousins is going to get the ball out very fast. This is a very, very good offense. It's going to be really hard to defend. It's going to be an interesting matchup as well. Oh, I see a lot more questions come in. That kind of goes along with Jason's comment there with what we were just saying. Need to stop the Vikings passing game and make them one-dimensional. This is a good question. Let's flip back to the offense. Levi says, Aaron Jones back in 19 late took the game over to beat the Vikings. Will Jones get fed today? In theory, he should. But remember, Aaron Jones has essentially been, quote-unquote, managed for the past 2 or 3 weeks because of his ankle and knee injury. And so we saw them originally elevate Tyler Goodson for today, and I thought that might have something to do with Aaron Jones. Maybe he was elevated just to see how Aaron Jones was going to be feeling today. And once Aaron Jones came in and felt like he was able to be full go, that's why they made Tyler Goodson inactive. That's the only thing I can really kind of work out there in my head. But we saw Patrick Taylor get a lot more reps last week as well because Aaron Jones has to be managed. And that's not to say they're going to pull Aaron Jones. It's just they're not going to put him in there for as many reps. They're going to give maybe the majority of the reps to A.J. Dillon, split some of them to Patrick Taylor, and then use Aaron Jones in those must-need situations, those Aaron Jones classic situations. Last week, we saw, they had a 1st and 20 and pulled Aaron Jones in and let him get the right edge, and he picked up 18 yards. I think they ended up scoring on that drive. That was the drive when Alan Lazard counted the 3 defenders, and he has since been fined for that, for taunting. So I think we see Aaron Jones used, but in certain situations, he's not going to be getting the most touches today as he would in normal weeks. Karen says, Preston looks psyched heading into Lambeau today. I think he will get it done. They're going to need him to get it done. This is kind of goes back to what we were talking about, but still a very good question, and it's going to be the key. Levi asked, TJ Hawkinson is a new piece they haven't seen as a Viking. How do they stop him and focus so much on stopping Dalvin and Jefferson? Jaire followed Jefferson. That could be probably one of their better options, is to keep Jaire on Jefferson in a man situation, just sticky man the whole game, and let everyone else sort of play a zone, just to kind of keep to keep Cook and Hawkinson and Thielen to short things. And, they also talked this week, and Jaire, we heard him in that video, Jaire talking about, you're okay giving Justin Jefferson 9 or 10 yards, which you would normally never say for somebody because that moves the chains. But they're okay giving those to Justin Jefferson because they know they don't want him to get 52 yards, which is what happened last week versus the Dolphins. And so I think we could see maybe more of some sticky man on Jefferson and then more of some zone with everyone else. That's difficult to play. Your communication has to be top notch. But if their communication has improved, as the guys have said it has, then that's something you could pull off and maybe one of your best options against this offense. Let's see if we have any other questions. Mitchell says, Joe Barry needs to blitz Campbell through the A-gap from time to time. That's Cousins' weakness, pressure in his face. He will not roll out of the pocket. You're right. He doesn't like to leave the pocket a lot, Mitchell. We saw this defense hesitant to send a lot of pressure early on in the season. The past couple of weeks, though, as I said, as the secondary said, this pass rush has made the biggest difference. Can you blitz Campbell? Can you blitz Quay Walker? Shoot, can you blitz a safety, blitz a corner, send Jaire on a corner blitz? You've got to be aggressive. This is literally a do or die game. You have nothing left to lose. Just send the house if you have to, because you're right. That is something that can get in Kirk Cousins' face. Tyler asked, why am I not there? I am here at Lambeau. This is our office at Lambeau. With day games, it's a little bit of different rules as far as who can be on the field and who can't. And so we can't be on the field for a day game, unfortunately. But I am still here at Lambeau. Saw some of the warm-ups and guys coming in as well. I'm going to take a couple of more questions here. This is a really good question from Levi. Watson is active, so is he running full speed or is he a decoy? I think he's active because it's going to be, they want him there as long as he feels okay. The second he doesn't feel like he can go, they may pull him. That hit he took last week in Miami, which is what kept him out of practice for most of this week, was such a tough hit, and it was right on the hip bone. That's tough when you're such a fast receiver to have that hip hurting you. And so I think that they want him available. However, if you remember the video we showed of Watson earlier from during the week, he said that even at 80%, he knows at 80%, his speed is still faster than most people. And so even if he's not running full speed because of his speed, I think you want him out there because Christian Watson at 80% is a lot faster than most people. We're going to get ready to sign off here. As we said, we've got about an hour and 10 minutes until kickoff. Christian Watson, Keyshawn Nixon, both active. Huge for the Packers in a must-win game against the Vikings. And let's check in one last time on the Browns and Commanders. Still 17-7, about 11 minutes to go left in the game. Huge game as well to watch for Packers fans. Pete and I will be here for you on a post-game Facebook Live, and then we'll have a Green 19 podcast post-episode as well. And we will have full coverage for you here from Lambeau Field, win or lose, as the Packers try to sneak into the playoffs and continue their run. Make sure to follow Tom Silverstein's live blog as well, which should be starting here in probably the next hour, probably the next half hour or so, and we'll be running throughout the game. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time. Happy New Year's.